Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here in Dallas this morning, and I had a realization today that I've been doing something all wrong. You can see on the right hand side of the screen I have the frame rate monitor, the frame rate display open from dev mode, and on the bottom of that you can see, it's probably a little bit difficult, but you can see GPU memory currently at right about 9.3 out of 10.4. Now I do not have auto FPS running. This is just a standard Microsoft Flight Simulator setup. It is SimUpdate 2 beta, and there is a particular setting that is new that I want to tell you about. First of all, you can see I've got my frames limited to 30. Now I have a 60 Hertz monitor, which means it can display 60 frames per second. I'm currently limiting it to 30. Now let me show you real quick this new setting. And here that is. So this is my user CFG file for Flight Sim 2024. I'm in the SimUpdate 2 beta. This is version 1.4.13. And you can see here there is a setting for frame limiter. This is a new setting. This is in the basic graphics settings. So you can set your frame limit or limit your frame rates using this setting, but it's not available in the game settings. So you can't go into the game settings and put a limit of 30, but you can come here into the user CFG file and limit your frame rates here. So I've done that here to 30 frames per second. Now bear in mind, I have a 60 Hertz monitor, so my monitor refresh rate is 60, so 60 frames per second is what it can generate, or what it can display. So if we now come back here into the sim settings, like I said, there is no way to set that frame limiter in the sim itself. It's not a sim setting. I don't know if they're going to change that as they go forward, but in the current SimUpdate 2 beta build 1.4.13, it is not available in the sim settings, but you can set it through the user CFG file. Don't quite understand the philosophy there, the logic. Nonetheless, you can see that I do not have frame generation on. Now let's turn on AMD FSR3 and see what happens. Come back here into the sim and look at this. Now we're at 60. We go inside the airplane now and we take a look around. Incredibly smooth, very, very smooth. Getting close to my memory limit. We're, about 10 out of 10.5 gigs. But still, we're in Dallas. We have live traffic on. So I would expect for my VRAM to get, pretty hammered in this scenario. And again, dynamic settings are not on, so the change, the sim itself is not making any changes to my settings to try to compensate for the performance, and I'm not running auto FPS, which is easily the best thing you can do to try and kind of limit out of memory issues and VRAM issues in the sim. So this is completely stock, fourth busiest airport in the world, live traffic in the Phoenix A321. I'm pretty happy about this. So what is it that I was doing wrong? What I was doing wrong was I had been setting my frame rate limit in NVIDIA control panel to 60 and then turning on frame gen in the sim. So effectively what I was doing was I was generating 60 frames per second, which is all my monitor can display anyway, and then I was essentially doubling that, or not essentially doubling that, I was doubling that, but those frames were not getting displayed. So I was generating 120 frames per second on a monitor that can only show 60. So in this scenario, now limiting it to 30 and then turning frame gen on, so now I'm generating 30 frames. That frame rate is being doubled, and now I see 60 in the sim. So I've got the same GPU memory usage as I was getting before. I actually have less, because when I was generating 60 and then doubling that when you couldn't even see it, that's why I was getting pegged up against my VRAM the entire time for no reason whatsoever. So in theory, right now, I can probably run the sim right now without dynamic settings enabled and without auto FPS. If I can do this in Dallas, I can do this anywhere. Getting back into the plane here, you can see the quick jump there to 10.1 gigs, 10 gigs right now. So we're right up against the limit, but nonetheless, I mean, it's still usable. So the real short story here is that I've been doing frame gen wrong. And the thing is, there are a million different ways to do it, depending on what card you have, depending on whether you're using the frame gen mod. As a matter of fact, let me take a real quick look. Let's try the frame gen mod as opposed to AMD FSR3. And we'll see what we get. See, with the frame gen mod, it's not going to show us that we have the double frame rate because it's only picking up what the sim itself is generating. But actually, I can see right here at 10 out of 10.4. But this, my guess, is very super smooth as well, and it is. It looks to me, just on initial review, that well, now it's showing 60. Looks to me that the AMD is actually a bit smoother and perhaps uses a bit less memory. Let's go back into the settings here. Go back to AMD. And remember, this AMD FSR3 is going to be available to everybody in Sim Update 2. Yeah, so it takes goes from about 10.2 down to 9.9, 9.8 gigs of memory. So I'm saving maybe, what, 5%? Which, you know, 5% I'll take. You know, it's actually getting to be a little bit more right now. So to me, FSR3 is actually working better, the native implementation versus the frame gen mod. So like I was saying, there are many different ways to do this particular thing. Like you can limit your frame rates in NVIDIA control panel, you can use VSync, there's all different ways to do it. But the moral of the story is, if you're using frame gen, if you're using the frame gen mod, or if you're in Sim Update 2 beta and you're using AMD FSR3 frame gen, you should limit your frame rates. However you're limiting it, you should limit your frame rates to half your monitor refresh rate and then turn on frame gen, and it's going to double that, and you're going to get your native monitor refresh rate, and you'll only be generating, you know, half of that, and the frame gen, whatever frame gen you're using, is going to create the magic. That includes lossless scaling. So if you're using lossless scaling, they recommend that anyway, which is what made the light bulb go on in my feeble mind. In lossless scaling, they tell you to limit your frames to half your monitor refresh rate and then turn on lossless scaling. Well, that's why, because there's no reason to generate more frames than you can actually see, than your monitor can actually display. So now with this setup, I'm basically getting the performance that I was getting with auto FPS before. So now if I turn auto FPS on, I should get even better performance. So the light bulb has kind of gone on in my mind here about how to properly use frame gen, and I'm going to be doing some testing here in 2024 as the day goes on. I'll keep you guys posted, but this to me is kind of a seminal moment of realization in the sim and what I've been doing wrong for years now, frankly. So hope that you guys are all doing well. I hope you find this useful. Let me know if you try this, what your results are in the comment section below. Hope everybody's having a great day, and we'll talk soon.